Isn't that what it is? Media surfing? I don't know.
Exactly. Well,
welcome to the decision table. Back to it, Michelle. Oh, it's another day on the decision table. But you know what? I thought today it would be so relevant having our conversation because you know how important it is for me with movement and the physical. And I think you know that the lens this month is all around the importance of the muscle of human intelligence. And human intelligence is the data that we have within us, and that comes from our brain, it comes from our movement, it comes from our emotions, it comes from so much, right? Whether it's our environment, it's still the data that is being put through us and then our output later. But this, and I think that something that's really important in your world is movement. And I would love to talk more about that today.
Well, I would love to talk about that as well. So
you always like to talk about that.
I do. Again, thank you for asking me. Movement is really important, I think, in everyone's lives. I was going to say in my life, but I think actually it's important for everyone. It was only recently when I was reading a book by the same author that I sent to you at Christmas time, where they were talking about how our minds, how our brains are able to grow with exercise. And I didn't know that because that's been a myth that from our childhood was broken some time ago. But it wasn't until I read this book that it started to really sink in that actually, our brains, we aren't stuck with one intelligence. Like we're not stuck. The whole, there's almost these IQ tests and things like that. I think they're almost done us a disservice. Because when we were at school, at least when I was at school, we were put through that sort of rigmarole. We had to go and have an IQ test in grade 9 or 10, and that was like then a stamp. This is the box you're going to be in for the rest of your life. But the reality is actually we can change our brains out all of the time by what we do, whether it's the food that we eat, and the way we think, but definitely exercise also. The science has now proven, but only in the last decade or two, that our brains grow, that we grow new neural pathways and all these other things happen. Can't remember all the science, but all these amazing actual physical things, not just the chemical dopamines and things that make us feel good, but all these physical changes are actually happening, and we are getting smarter when we exercise. So I went, we should all just do more exercise.
So give us an idea of how we're getting smarter. Like give us just one place. How does movement help us to be smarter? I get the dopamine and all that side of it. That's kind of the thing that everyone always talks about, right? When it comes to movement and things like that. But there's so much more to it, like you're saying.
So, for example, if I can remember this example from the book or from one of the books I've read recently, there was a school in America that was a pretty average school. In fact, probably below average, how they were performing. And this is a longitudinal study, so it's not just something that was done over a short period. And a PE teacher went in and he had this whole revolutionary idea that if the children did some exercise each day, first thing in the morning, but not just go run laps and not just go, do the things that we can remember at school. Anyone who didn't like PE,
PE, yes.
Don't want to do that. That's, and unless you were really good at it, it was really debasing. It was like, because it was quite a competitive environment. But what they did was turn it into more a heart rate. So what you had to do was an individual thing based on your heart rate. So you had to just keep your heart rate at a particular rate in these exercises that they had to do.
Your heart rate at a particular rate.
Well, whatever their rate was, it was particular for them based on their. They do a little bit of. So I've just been for a run. I have no oxygen.
And I've just been for that major walk.
So I'm negatively proving that if you go for a run, you'll get smarter. Actually, just after.
I'm thinking that it's not making me smarter. It's making me more like.
There are reasons for that too. However, The point was everybody,
yes,
they were all competing against themselves. Like it wasn't a competition in the old-fashioned sense. So your idea, your aim was to stay within a particular heart rate. And whatever it could have been running around track, could have been, doesn't really matter. The idea was that they stayed within a particular heart rate. So they all wore a heart rate chest monitor. Yeah, so just a little strap around there. And then they had to go and log it. To log out of PE, they had to go and log this information in the computer. And then the computer is a bit like gamification stuff that we're aware of in our worlds. So they got positive feedback for staying within that kind of thing. So these kids did it for all of their, 4 years at high school. And when they compared the results of generally in life for these kids, not just academically, but definitely academically, but genuinely in life, much better outcomes for what they went on and did as adults.
They were more confident with who they were, what they were doing, how they were responding to things, when there were challenges that came along their way, all sorts of things, right? Like I remember reading a lot around that. So interesting. Here's the interesting thing too. I think that there's an interesting concept around the short-term, long-term. I think there's people who find short-term things really easy and they're often sprinters. Like I've got this theory around it, like seriously, they're good at sprinting. And then there's people who are really good at the long-term thing. And I find they're the ones that, now maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but I do find that they are good at things like the long distance, the longevity, the working at things that, often we want this gratification straight away. We want the result. We want to be told, like, hey, if I do this workout, then I'm sure I'm going to lose about 20 pounds, like overnight. It's just magic. And so lots of people give up because they are that short-term concept, or like, they can function in small doses, but if I have to stick at this, I'm not very good at that. How do we do that as a longevity thing versus, yep, this sounds great, love it in theory, know that movement helps us, but we get busy. Life is busy. Business is busy. Children, whatever it is busy, right?
It is. But ultimately, if you are not looking after yourself, and I believe movement is at the core of that. Food, obviously, as well, because that nutrition and things, they're kind of equal. But you won't have a life. Like you have to kind of develop some mantras that work for you. That, do you want to be there for your kids when they have kids? Do you want to be able to get up that flight of stairs without puffing so much that you have to stop halfway up? Do you want to live? I mean, we've got one life, as far as I know. I don't know. And why do it half-assed? So why? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's illogical to live a life that is not the best life you can. And it's one thing to be chasing your financial and business goals, but if physically you can't enjoy the rewards, even so, say if you do go and make $1 billion business, if you physically then are really unwell, how is that? Like, it's just,
so many do it though. So it makes sense. So even though we know it makes sense, it's often when a crisis happens that someone goes, oh, now I'm going to be healthy, or now I'm going to do this, or change my ways. How can we get it to a point that this becomes just as important as your bottom line?
Some of it, I think, is education. I think like understanding, like reading some of the books and educating yourself, with what modern life has done to us. We've talked about this, you and I, in the past, that human evolution or whatever, we've been around for however many thousands of years, but the modern life that we live
now. Not me personally, but our culture,
yes, not
human race.
Me, because I'm older than you.
Not quite that much older, although I do push that you are older than me.
I don't care. I'm proud of it.
Yeah. So, and stop saying that. I just heard someone say, I can hear it. Yeah, but she looks so much younger than you. Whatever. Exactly.
It's all very relative, which is really this point. It's very relative. Yeah. So human evolution, like we've been as we are in the way we have our bodies are physically, and our brains is physically the way they are now. Been like that for many, many years, and we do evolve, but evolution is very, very slow, actually, in some ways. Although I have heard some opposite things. However, the way we live.
Well, there's things that can trigger it to speed it up, probably, right?
Yes, definitely. However, we still have what we have now, like the normal human brain, and our bodies and the way they work. But we've been.
By the way, Michelle, I've never been told that my brain was normal. Just thought I'd put that in there.
No, your brain is not normal. I can attest to that after 4 years.
Thanks. Why did I put myself out that one? Anyway, sorry for interrupting. Yes, what were you
trying to say?
Yeah.
Is that the modern life that we live, the way we live now, which is what I think has contributed to the point that you're trying to make, and that why don't people prioritize their physical and mental health more above the other goals they're trying to achieve in their lives, or not goals, like or
even just make it as priority as your bottom line, right? Like
they just go to work and that's it. And it's because we've put ourselves in these boxes. We can call them houses, we can call them offices, whatever. But the boxes, and everything's just easy because they talk about our monkey brain or whatever.
Yeah.
So at the moment, because our world is quite easy, in the Western world, we can just sit around and our bodies are going, oh, this is great. We better just chill for a while because any minute now, catastrophe will happen. A saber-toothed tiger will come and chase us or whatever. Yeah. So while we need to chill and we need to, collect all of the energy, like the animals who hibernate in winter, we need to do all that. But our hibernating in winter is like all our lives for some people.
I was going to say that's just like, 60 years, 70 years of whatever it is, 90 years on this earth. Some people just hibernate. Imagine that, hibernating all your life when you could live life.
Well, all they do is watch television, go to work, watch television, go to work.
But for some, they just, that is life to them. And I think, beyond how you do it or the need to do it, I think you miss out on so much when you don't prioritize movement. Like I went out for my walk today because that I've sort of been, I've set myself to do a 10K and then I'm almost smashed the 10K this morning. What did I do? 8 something Ks. Yep. But, and that was really actually quite easy for me considering
I introduced you to Strava yesterday.
Yeah,
so
true.
You start tracking and you're already going.
Well, I'm a results-orientated person, and so I didn't realize it was in miles. In fact, until I got home, and then you brought it to my attention too, and I was like, "Oh, let me just swap that over." Oh, look, I've done not 5 miles. I've done 8 point. I've got to find out what was it. 8 points.
Yeah, really excited.
Yeah, 8.38 Ks actually. But, for me, that's fun. Like that's like putting a like, me, I like to have a bit of a challenge. Around something. It's like that mental challenge that is a physical challenge, and combining those two things together, because often the reason I haven't got to the next level is because my head's not been in the game. I've not made a decision and gone, hey, this is what I'm really about. I've kind of hesitated or sat on the edge. And usually when I sit on the edge, it never gets done because I haven't actually committed to it. But as soon as I do, me, I'm like totally sold out for it. I know not everyone thinks like that, but I have to say in my morning walk this morning, I was able to do 2 meetings, catch up on an amazing call with a friend and colleague. And then I got home, jumped on the bike and then rode to school to drop my daughter off and then back. Might have stopped by Bobby's shop to get a coconut chai and a yummy wrap for breakfast because I was so hungry after all of that. But there was I got a sunrise. I got to smell fresh air. I reminded myself how grateful I am that I can actually walk after being told I'd never walk again. These were things that I would have missed out if I hadn't have taken that time. So beyond the fact that it was actually doing, physically good stuff, and probably ticking my brain over at a better speed because it was getting everything moving and flowing throughout the body. The mental side of it, I think, is just unbelievable. And I know that when I'm not moving, and it was one of the toughest things when I ended up in the wheelchair, was not the fact that I was in a wheelchair, not the fact that my whole world had just turned overnight into something totally different. It was the fact I couldn't move.
Mm.
That was so hard for me mentally.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? What's that about?
About how your brain was very unhappy that you couldn't move. It was probably, maybe it is. If you tie it back into that monkey brain thing that we were talking about before, can you imagine if we were 3,000 years ago? I should get my timelines correct, but a long time ago, then and you couldn't move, then your life is like you either would have to rely on your clan or your family to drag you around everywhere, or that's it. Like that would just.
But
be
I
it.
remember sitting on the edge of my bed and literally not being able to move, except for I could bum shuffle. I don't know if you're meant to say bum, but I'm saying bum shuffle, right? Like you got off the bed and I used my arms to move to be able to then pull myself up onto a toilet to go to the bathroom, right? I know, but I can tell you the mental, like brain energy I had to use to just do that was huge. And I remember getting to the point on my crossroad moment was, do I just give up on this? Or do I want to try and fight to get myself back moving? And not just moving, for me, it was walking, and not just walking. It's like the next piece of, being fit and healthy and at peak performance level. Like that's where I love being, and it's what I like functioning at. But I have to say, like, it took a lot of mental toughness.
If you read any stories of people who've been, in serious accidents and ended up, paraplegic or, any loss of movement in some way, it is often, things that go on in their mind that help them through those next steps. So it's that fortitude of pushing through that, I want my life to be, first you have to grieve whatever you've lost for this time. And then
boy, did I do that.
How are you going to?
I said, boy, did I do that. I agree.
Yeah,
I
totally
really did. Yeah.
I totally can imagine.
I was for 2 years, I was in brain fog because the pain was so horrific. I couldn't even think.
Yeah.
So there was none of that. Like I was not at that point that I could even get myself to think like that. And I often wonder for those that are at that space. So my dream, my vision for my life was, and I talk about drivers all the time. My drivers were way stronger than where I was at that point. But I had to get my point to think of that and then just placing that as being really important. And one of my drivers was when I was at that crossroad, do I stay on here? Do I try and fight to get out of this wheelchair and get a life outside of this? And there were some real strong drivers at that point. One of them was family. Okay, if I tell my kids you can be everything, but I'm not role modeling that, then I can't say that. And then my kids are going to fail. And then they're not going to be doing what that, like I went through this whole scenario, right?
Yeah.
And then the other side, which very strongly for me as well, is humanity. I was like, I know I'm meant to help change and be part of the change and make a difference. How can I do this if I'm stuck in bed? I could do it on the computer is what I said. And then I was like, yeah, but I could do it that way. Or what if I could get out and be a part of all this? And now we're stuck behind computers. It's so very funny. But, and so that became a massive driver. And then the third thing was, okay, if this is all that life is and all I've done and gone through has ended up to be this, then why did I bother even living yesterday? And I thought, if I'm to live tomorrow, I want to live the best today. And so that became the third massive driver for me.
So a lot of what I hear you saying is I thought.
Yeah.
So it's all about what's going on in your mind. So going
I
all
know,
the way.
because you know me, I'm kind of that person that would think that way because I don't want to settle. I might grieve for a moment. I might hurt for a moment. I might sit in that for a moment. But then it's like, okay, now I've got over myself on that. What is the next piece I have to do to get myself moving? Not everyone can get to that point. And I often wonder, how can we help people to get to that point if that's not something, you know, I've had to work through challenges, right?
You don't want everyone to have to go to, you know, horrific, to have horrible things happen in their lives in order to
like,
have that moment.
How can they get to that spot without that horribleness?
So I did hear, I mean, this is pretty common saying, but that once you hear something, you can't unhear it. It was very hard to unhear it. So we all get messages to live healthy and do this and do that. However, another marketing thing is that we need to hear things 7 times before we really get to them.
Is that a truth?
I don't know. I certainly think that there's a combination of where we are in our lives and our development personally, and the messages that are coming to us and how they're coming to us, and if the stars are all aligned at the right time and all these things.
Wow,
and
when
then
does that happen?
Something that you might have heard like 10 years ago, and then all of a sudden, oh, that's what and you fully get a deeper understanding or whatever of that thing. And maybe that's just where I am at the moment with the whole neuroscience and things like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, reading that book, for example, those books, there's a couple of them by John Ratty. I think it was Go Wild
I would change my last name if that was it.
Pardon? You would? I know, it's interesting.
No, because you know how they say words are so important.
Ratty.
It's like if I say I'm ready. Hey, I'm Miss Ratty.
You would feel like really
ready, crappy, crazy.
Anyway,
I don't know. Oh, sorry.
Reading those books, and once because they're written well, like for me, they're written well, and they're little stories as well that come with it. It's kind of sunk into me, and I'm like, once you, and it's the same for me. I've got friends who are very big in Australia in the low carb, high fat world, and I've spent some time with them. And once they tell you the things in a way that you understand them and it sinks into you, it's really hard to unlearn them, and you can't just pretend that you didn't know that anymore. And so the next time you go to grab a chocolate bar, or the next time you go to say, I think I'll miss that run this week, or whatever, however you process.
I used to think like that. I used to think like what you were just saying there. And then I go, if that's the truth, then all we need to do is hear it.
Yeah, but there's an understanding that has to happen. It's not just the hearing. That was the bit about, you know, I've heard some of these things from different people in different ways, and the stars kind of need to align. So maybe you just need to, like, if you're trying to educate the world, because to me it was like people just need to know that if they're moving, and we're all supposed to move. Like, pretty much all of us are supposed to move. That's the way our bodies are made. And if we don't, they get unhealthy. And plus, you know, obviously food is a part of that. So you feel like I just need to get that message across to people. And if that means I have to do it in 10 different ways, because everyone learns in a different way or absorbs things in a different way, they're in different stages in their lives, then so be it. So if your goal in this world is to educate people to have to be healthier, and I believe that to do that you need to move and eat properly, then the education needs to cross lots of different ways, and it just needs to keep going. Like I get
that. But how many times? Come on. Here's an example. How many times do you hear some people say, I got to lose weight, I've got to get healthy? Years later, they're still saying the same thing. So they've had different things tell them, educate them. For some people, they will action on that and go, you know what, had enough of this. I don't like the fact that when I go to do my shoelaces, I can hardly breathe because I'm, overweight.
Your diaphragm.
Yeah, correct. Or, I hate it that my kids can run around and I've got to be the slow one at the back, hoping to catch up to see them have fun and hear their laughter. Like some people get to a point and they go, all right, I don't want to be at that point anymore. They can push beyond. I'm one of those people that you get me to a point and I'm like, this is enough and I will move to the next. But what I'm learning is that not everyone thinks like that. Not everyone can. So do you have any strategies around how, like, if that's not your norm and it's not the thing that you're not self-motivated, I think that's one of the things too, or self-disciplined. I think there's a lot to do with that. I think that there's a lot of people who work well in groups because they've got other people, they're accountable to other people. They've got people who are there's this thing called ego. And I've said I'm going to do this. I don't want to let people down because if I do, then they're going to think I'm a loser kind of moment. Like, seriously, I've really realized, and particularly in the last little while, as I've looked at a lot of patterns and behaviors and really like what we're looking at here on the decision table of being able to master the muscle of human intelligence. And then part of that is being able to use the information that we have, the data that we have, and then be able to use that to the most effective way to get the result that we want, right? And so I'm very curious all the time around those that really struggle to get these habits into place or to change things because maybe they haven't found the right diet or the right person to help them to get there or be a part of a group, or like there's always excuses. And I go, I will find whatever it takes to get me to help to find that piece that I might need some support on. And I realized that
you're not like everyone else.
I know that, but this is why I'm trying to understand it, Michelle, because I think that we can think that it's sometimes when it's easier for us or we've got ways that we've learned to get to that point that everyone else should just understand that this is so important. Can you not see, you said it yourself, logically, that this makes sense? Well, not everyone does get to that point and not everyone does find that easy. So how are there strategies? Are there things that we can do to help us to get to that point easier?
I think I do actually think most right-thinking people will see the logic.
You're so black and white. I think that I'd love to think, and I'd love to agree with you on this. I really would.
I think.
But I think you think you're so much more positive about the human thinking that would think right, because I just know so many people have tried things and then given up on it.
Yeah, but I think that the distinction is not whether they think that it's a good idea. I think.
I know you're thinking a lot.
I do. I am.
You're a thinker.
I think you couldn't really ask many people in the Western world, is it healthy to eat a chocolate bar or an apple, for example? Most people would say eat an apple would be the healthier.
No, they wouldn't anymore, because now if you eat fruit's bad for you because it's full of sugar, even though it's natural sugar.
Well, I actually have something to say about that, but I won't. Anyway.
I want to hear that after this bit, but yeah.
Well, only a little bit to say about it. So I do think that people like that comes back to the education thing before. I think they know, but we're talking about motivation actually. Like that.
I don't know. Are we?
Is it enough? Like logically, I think people understand in general what a healthy life looks like, and that they even might desire it.
Yep.
That adopting it.
So if there's an awareness, they know it. I'll agree with you on that one. Yes, absolutely.
So really what we're talking about is why don't they then do it? Like why don't, or even us, you and I would make choices probably quite often where we think, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that, or we all do it a little bit. And some of it is this, ancient stuff that goes on in our head where it's in our subconscious. It's got nothing to do with our environment. It's got to do with, the wiring that was put in there thousands of years ago into our DNA that says, oh, it's comfortable. We need to stay comfortable, and we need to make sure it's all that stuff we're talking about before, the hibernating stuff. But some people's drivers, like your driver, is obviously very strong when you decide you want to do something. Others are not so strong because they haven't practiced it. Coming back to that human intelligent muscles and things.
So it's that.
It. So to me, it's all about developing small habits and changing your habits slowly, rather than if you're one of those people who hasn't been able to stick at something that you want, you should do, but you haven't been able to stick at it, then it's those small habits, adopting them in your life, and doing it slowly and not being too hard on yourself all of the time when you don't stick to it, but you just get back on the horse and you just keep moving. And maybe it's like we have this thing about mistakes and doing things wrong that it makes people. So when they do fall off the horse, they go on a diet. I hate the word diet anyway. It should be a change.
Yeah, me too.
It's like not a diet. Yeah. So they start an exercise program, which again probably should be a lifestyle thing. We should probably treat that like the word diet too. It's a bad word. However, so they're changing their lifestyle. Just do it one little thing at a time. And if you fall off that lifestyle wagon, whatever we want to call it, don't beat yourself up. Just get back on the horse tomorrow. It's all about direction. And as we age and as we go through our lives, we do change what is important to us and what.
I hadn't noticed that we changed.
Really?
Yeah. In my brain, I still look like I did when I was, that young
Maybe
teenager.
We should stop doing these things where we can see ourselves. Because it'd be very easy if I couldn't see.
That's right.
I don't look 19 anymore.
No, we don't. No, but I think it's funny because I do think perception really, we can talk to ourselves and convince ourselves that it's okay if we just do this another day and not move today or not eat that healthy, lifestyle kind of in our world. If I just do that for a few days, I'll be good. I'll get back to it. And then before long, those few days turns into a few years and then there's other consequences to that. And I think I love what you said around, it takes just the small little things. And I think particularly when it's not an easy thing or you're not a disciplined thing. And I think that's why in some ways challenges are really good, like little step challenges for those that need it, and then bigger steps for those that like stretching that. I think for all of us, we talk about the muscle. Well, muscle just doesn't turn into muscle because it's got the word muscle. You know what I mean? Like there's some work, there's some tension. Right. There's some stretch to it, right? And I think that's often something we want to happen overnight, but it doesn't happen. And, I think, the other side of this is I think sometimes we're really good at doing that short, again, going into the short versus the long term. It's easy to do those quick challenges. It's easy to get, okay, I'm going to do this challenge. I'm going to do it. But it's then going, when that challenge stops, how am I going to challenge, or how am I going to put it into play as I continue to move forward? And I think that this is an interesting thing, man. I think even when I look at leadership and we talk about the muscle of human intelligence, and, it's really a mastery of a muscle that we've been given. How we use that, what that looks like, is all up to the individual as a person. And then imagine if we could do that well, how could we do that as a collective? The world opens up with possibilities. So awesome. But here's the thing. Like a muscle, I think that at times we're meant to work it harder. at times we are to take it to that next level so that it gets that push, and then it becomes part of your lifestyle or your everyday way you do it. I also think that, and I saw this a lot last year, and I think that it's an interesting thing, but I think it needs to be talked about a lot more right now. And that is that we sometimes know how to work it hard. We don't know how to rest it or give it recovery. And I think that that's, I mean, I'm always getting told off from you, but, and I see that look across the screen and I'm feeling it right through my whole body right now, but exactly that moment. But I think, and I know this because of my fitness years, and fitness was that whole importance of, giving the muscle time to recover as well. And I've had to work out what that balance looks like for me in pushing harder, in just being consistent, but then also giving recovery to the body. And I think that even in leadership, if we pull it back to that there's this real need for us as leaders to know how to refuel. So there's times when we need to move a lot. There's times when we need to push a bit harder. But I also think that there's times where we need to learn, how do we refuel the tank so that we can then consistently keep going? Any thoughts around that?
So many thoughts around that.
I know. I thought you would. But I think it's a big issue right now. And I think, like last year, I saw a lot of leaders by the end of the year just absolutely shattered, myself included.
So for me, as you know, one of my things I'm developing at the moment is mindful running, which is really exercising in a mindful way, which means the things that are going on in your head. And, when you said earlier, you went for your walk and you did 2 calls and you did this and you did that. And I'm like, okay, slow down. Sometimes when you go for a walk,
but it felt good though, because I got to tick off those things.
Yes, but that's
I got to do that.
That's true, but you're not allowing your mind to just be in the space. You're trying to solve things. You're having conversations. So that it's also important to have some space where that's also happening, where you're not having to tick another thing off. You're not having a conversation. You're not trying to solve a problem. You're not doing anything, actually. In fact, you're deliberately trying to get your brain to just be, to look. Like you did actually mention, I got to see the sun, all those sort of things. So these moments don't have to be, I'm sitting, I did a 4-hour meditation last year. Was it 4 hours? I think I told you. Oh. It was a long time. These moments could just be like 30 seconds. Like you're just appreciating the sun and not having other things going on.
Me with my camera, my phone. One of the things I do is I try to take photos, right? That moment of taking a photo. And that for me is just being in that moment, stopping for a second. And I might be even on a meeting and I'll just go kind of quiet and I'm listening to them, but I'm actually taking a photo. And it's because I just see something beautiful, or I bring that actually into the meeting. So today I was on a meeting and, there was some pretty full on stuff on it as well. And so I said, hey, guess what? I'm walking and the sun is just rising. I want to share it with you. And so it was like, and, she said afterwards, she said, it was like you took me on this journey with you today.
That's lovely.
But it's true. I really love those moments, right? And that's why I love taking photos, because it's like it snaps that moment.
So I also wonder if a combination of a little bit of exercise, like this is in reference to last year where everybody was locked down and not such good space, being able to go outside, fresh air, take your shoes off, put your shoes in the grass. If you have the opportunity to have grass around you, and most people do. I mean, I know it's not always available if you're in big cities and things, but just be in those spaces. I'm not talking about
in the dirt.
Whatever. It's fine. Grass feels better because it's growing, because there's life there. Not that there isn't life.
Exactly. There might be spiders. There might be slugs, snails, dirt.
And then there's breath, of course. Which
why is grounding so important in that way? Like, why is it the feet?
It goes right back to it. Like as we talk, We've not evolved past what we were.
I've never known everyone. Wait on. I've never known Michelle to have no words.
We're not evolved beyond what we were before we went into the Industrial Revolution or whatever. And so when we spend a lot of time outside, our bodies, it's all tied into the things around us. Whenever I go, I go off hiking and camping and things a fair bit if I can. And it in part so that I can be in the environment, to get up when the sun comes up, to be aware of all of the animals, like the birds and things. We have obviously kangaroos and when I was on the yacht the other day and the sail, like all the dolphins, and just to be aware of the ebb and flow.
You do have a lot of wildlife because you live in Tasmania.
I do live in a wildernessy sort of area, but it's just that ebb and flow of life. Ultimately we're part of what's going on outside these doors. We just happen to put these doors up around us and stop us. We put a barrier between it, and so I think it's important that we, as regularly as possible, step into that, because I think it does ground us and makes us feel a bit more alive, a bit more a part of.
Have a water. Have a water.
But also breathing is what I wanted to have a brief.
But I'm saying everyone have a water. Have a water. Look at her. She turns her eyes up. If you can't hear, like, you're just listening to this, not seeing. Michelle just turned her eyes up at me when I said that. So breathe, ground, have water. That's my advice.
With the breathing, I know we've had lots of giggles about it. It's very important, though.
Well, because it's the thing again with breathing. So here's the thing. I totally agree that we need to breathe. I totally agree that there are times you can feel it, right? Where you literally can feel stress. And if you breathe, you can get your body to a point that goes, I feel much better now. I just find it really funny. And I, again, question why some people need to hype themselves up to get themselves in a state to choose to breathe.
So
to me, that messes with my head.
Breathing is the opposite. I'm not trying to hype myself up. I'm actually trying to slow myself down.
Me too. And that's with me too.
And I found, because I've started this running technique, which is all around heart rate, as you know.
Yeah.
And in order to get my heart rate down, and not just slowing down, but to get my heart rate down, so not slowing my body down, but get my heart rate down, I found there's a couple of different techniques, and breathing is one of them. And so the breathing in, and then sort of imagining it going different parts of your body or whatever.
Okay, so do it with us now. Do it with us now.
It's actually the breathing out, and
it's got to be longer, right?
And thinking relax as I breathe out. So if you think, when you breathe
out,
how do I
think relax? Tell me that.
So that's one of the things I've noticed with breath. If you tie thoughts into it, the breath has more impact in your body. So if you are breathing in and you take a deep breath and you imagine it going to different parts of your body, even like your toes, you can actually physically have.
I know that one. But I think that also means, here's the thing. I think that it also means you have to be aware of your body.
Well, I think it helps. Everybody, again, it comes back into thoughts. It's accessible to everybody, if that makes sense. You just have to be aware, and you can practice these things without looking silly or telling anyone else you're doing it or whatever, any of those things, and yet they can be really helpful. It's awesome little tools you can take with you when you can feel yourself getting anxious.
Okay, well, do this moment with us. I want to do it.
So I don't think I've ever done a guided breathing.
That's okay. There's a first time for everything.
So when I'm running, for example, and I need to get my heart rate back down because that's the part of the training I'm doing, then I will breathe in and imagine my stomach filling up. Like, so that's a diaphragm sort of breathing, and it going to all my extremities, because I'm moving. I want everything to keep moving. And then I hold it for a couple of seconds while I'm going to run, and then slowly allow it to go out and just think relax and imagine all of my muscles relaxing if they're tense. And I find that brings my heart rate right down quite quickly as a result of having that.
And I'll often do that just before I go to bed, actually. That's the time, because often I've been going so busy, my brain goes really busy, and then I find myself lying in bed going, "Oh, my heart rate feels really fast right now. I need to like relax." And so I'll do that breathing then. That's exactly. And I kind of learned a lot of that because as a singer, like in my past life, it was one of those things that I may have done at one point in my life. You know, I had to learn how to use my diaphragm. And so we did breathing techniques as part of that. So it became kind of an interesting and you know, the whole even when you're in the fitness industry, like breathing in with the diaphragm and using that when you're doing muscle. So it's kind of been kind of a natural technique that I've used because of things that I've had to learn throughout the years. And I find that it puts you in a place where then you can be restful or not stressed, or even though the brain might still be wanting to go 50 million miles an hour, you actually can go, oh, okay, this is all right. This is good. And it gets you in a space where you can sort of get to the next point. So yes, breathing is really important.
There was something, I was watching a video the other day for a neurobiologist. He was talking about some of that breathing like we did last year. It's actually, they've done some studies now to show that this particular method does give you more energy. So he was particularly speaking to entrepreneurial types who want to, you know, who are feeling a bit flat and yet they need to do a bit of work, a bit of creative work. And that
Are
was,
you talking about the breathing that goes and all that kind of stuff?
Well, it wasn't as long as, it was literally just, it was also related to some yoga thing. I can't remember all the details, but it was breathing in two sort of sharp breaths. Or was it breathing out? Anyway, I can't really remember. But the thought was that you were getting rid of some of the all of the carbon dioxide or whatever, and that, so it actually there was a scientific proven reason why that worked, to give us a little bit more energy, because it was getting rid of some of the carbon dioxide. It might have been breathing in really deep actually, and then two short breaths out, or so it was that last little one which got rid of the last little bit of carbon dioxide. Anyway, it sounded very scientific. I thought, oh, that's pretty easy. Like, so if you're having, you know, that middle of the afternoon slump because we all eat too much sugar or carbohydrates, we've got these things going on, then that would be a quick way that you could get your brain back into work mode in a creative way. So,
but I find, like, to be honest, if you just even go for a walk outside, like, you know, I've got like a veranda or whatever, even if I do that and I do a few laps up and down there and look out and at the water and things like that, then I'm ready to get back in. Or like I always talk about curating spaces, and I think, you know, sometimes I might just go and have a swim down at the pool and then I'm back and I can do hours after that. But I also know that some people, and again, it's interesting because I know there's a lot of research around doing sprints, and so shorter spaces of time than longer spaces. But I'm actually the worst at doing that. Like, I find that really, really difficult. Or is that just me crazy? Like, yeah, like it's like I just get into something and now you're telling me go have a break. Like, I want to keep doing what I'm doing. Like, I'm in the middle of it, and then I find it hard to get back in and out, in and out, in and out. I actually really struggle.
When you're in that, you know, working really hard for a length of time, do you ever get to a point where you just get tired and it's like, I just need to do something else now?
Not really. I kind of get to the because I time block. Like, I'm a massive time block, but those time blocks are not what research probably would show you do. Correct. They are long periods of time, because time blocking for me works well. And so I'll go, what do I want to do in this time? Oh, I want to complete that particular task or that project, right? Or I need to get to this space, and then I stop and I can move to the next piece. I don't want to stop until I finish that, reach that, and then I can walk away and I'm really ready to do the next piece or go and have a walk or do whatever I need to do to have that break in between. But I really, there's so much that I find it really hard, those people that do lots of sprints. And I know, I've got people in my own world who do lots of sprints and they call, that's the religious about it. It's gospel for them. And they swear by it.
Is it just that, I mean, we have been talking about us being, our brains and our bodies being pretty much the same as they were however many years ago, but that doesn't mean that we aren't all a little different.
If you go back to that, females actually were really hardworking females. Like, we were physically doing a lot and moving a lot, and we didn't do it in sprints. We did it as these robust females.
Maybe it could be seen as a way to deal with the modern world. Like, we have a world full of interruptions and our attention being pulled left, right, and center.
Yeah, so is it more about the fact that our attention?
Yeah. So maybe that's what it is, that our attention, we can only do these short little sprints of attention now because that's what we've become accustomed to. And so adopting things like the sprint.
And here's the other thing, and I just think about that, is not only are we used to that, but it's also that overstimulation thing, right? Like, isn't that what happens when you want to be stimulated with the next piece that then stimulates you to do it? Well, and I think this goes back to the whole long-term, short-term thing too. If I think about that as patterns, like, you're amazing. Like, I can't even believe that you're about to, which we'll talk about in a second, but the race that you're about to go into, like that's 9.5 hours or whatever it is. Like, that's crazy crap. Like, that you would keep going for that period of time. Like, I would kind of get bored, but then I'm like, if I'm listening to something, maybe I wouldn't. So I don't know, maybe. But here's the thing. Like, for me, as long as it's more about the time block, is more about, well, what is it that I need to get done in that point? I'm not going to get bored in there. I'm not going to get like distracted in there. I just need to get that task done because I actually really want that done and completed. So I'm not looking for the next stimulation to then distract me to get to something else. And I'm very good at being compartmentalized and go, this is what I'm working on right now. And I know that's not something that everyone can do or likes doing, and I wonder if that's where it comes in with the sprint thing. So the reason I bring that up is because I think that all these amazing little ins and outs of how we work, what it functions, really creates us as a human. And I go, we often put things in place thinking that we all function the same, or we think the same, or we do it the same. And we're so not like that. And I think we've really, our conversation today has really, shown that we're not the same in the same way,
We're not the same. How strange.
And we're so not the same. Like, you wear red all the time. I do not.
I have blonde hair, really.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's funny things because we've got some similarities and in what we like and love and do. And yet the world functions a lot trying to tell us or put us in systems, or I don't know, it feels like that sometimes. And I think, movement's a bit like that too. Like, movement's really important. And then we think that maybe the only way we can move is the gym, or the only way we can do it is if we do it like this, an hour a day or whatever it is. And I think that we have to get back to what you were saying earlier, that it's those often the small things that become your lifestyle.
Correct. And it's very individual, as you said.
Yeah.
And for it to become a part of your lifestyle, it needs to be individual, because the way you live your life is different from the way I live my life. So
and you wouldn't want to live my life, right?
No, I don't want to live your life. And you don't want to live mine, so it works well.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind being like the cool runner that you are. I'm pretty jealous of that. Like, that's legendary. No, I
Glad we got this on video.
Yeah. This I have said. No, like I think that's pretty impressive. Tell us about the race you're working towards right now.
Well, it's actually not a race. It's
Well, no,
actually
sorry, it's not. I know
it's
that
a
actually.
challenge. It's a
Challenge.
challenge. Yeah. I started with a group of some running coaches in the Netherlands recently, and although I've been running pretty much all of my life, I want to run forever. I just want to be able to, I want to be able to run forever, because to me that's my path to health and wellness in many ways. And I believe once you become a bit more physically fit, you make better decisions with the food. Like, I don't always make great decisions with food, but you tend to, because if you become physically fit and you enjoy it, I think that makes you it filters down. You tend to make better choices.
I agree.
Anyway, so the challenge is, and I haven't done an ultra distance in about 7 or 8 years. So an ultra is anything over 42 kilometers. So the challenge is to run 60 kilometers at Easter time. So it's only 6.5 weeks away. I'm just looking at my training schedule. And I only decided to do that, say, maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. So it's not a very long period of time to train for that. And the training that we're doing is not normal training. It's based on your heart rate, as I said earlier. And that we don't run a long distance in our training, so we don't get worn out in the training, because traditional marathon training, you run up to, say, 32 to 34 kilometers.
Yeah, and then by the time of the race is actually there, you're already exhausted, right?
Yeah, especially as we're called age group runners. So people
is that what they call you now?
Beyond the 30s, or age group in their 30s and on. Age group runners, we tend to then get to the start line of your marathons or your longer distances, and already carrying some kind of injuries and things, because we've run so far in our training. So the idea is that you're running at a particular heart rate that's particular for you, which you do a little test to work out what that is, which keeps you running a bit slower, which is fine, which means you can run further. So that's sort of the concept. Plus, you're not running as far in your training, so you're not wearing yourself out in that way.
So how many hours will it be when you do it?
I did a 50K in 2013 in just over 5.5 hours. And I wasn't that's not particularly fast. I think I can probably do it inside of 8 hours, but we'll see. We'll see.
Will I still be able to talk to you while you're doing it?
Possibly.
That's a long time for us not to talk.
No, that's quite slow. So probably. Anyway, it's an new adventure for me as well. So
amazing. And that's what I love about it. And I think that, we're going to finish up this conversation now, but like, what I love about that is that I think that movement can be fun, that we can set challenges, we can, and not get bored with movement. I think that that's really important. And we've talked about that. And that's why I'm setting new goal posts with what I'm doing right now as well. And I love hearing what you're doing on that. And it inspires me to keep moving my goalposts a little bit further. And, like, I don't like being beaten too much. So, as you widen this gap, I need to narrow this gap between where you are at and where I'm. Not that I'm competitive at all.
My next one's 100K then.
Whoo, girl, can you just give me a little bit more warning? Although, if I keep going the way I did today, I could get there pretty quickly.
You'll be smashing it out, I reckon.
But as I always do, what are you taking from our conversation today?
That in order to reach more people with my message, which is that exercise is really important for us for long-term health, and I need many ways to communicate this message. It's not just a one-size-fits-all type of thing.
And I think it's easy to think that it is. And sometimes I think one of the things that's come strong out of our conversation, and something that's sort of been brought to my attention lately, but I think I'm even more aware from it since our conversation, is it's really easy to think, well, it's just, let's do it this way because we know that's beneficial. But there's so many different variables that we often have to bring to the table, and I think, and you've heard me say this so many times, but like, there's always a pathway to it. And I think the same with movement. I think the same with exercising the muscle of human intelligence. There's always, variables, challenges, things that might get thrown in the way, but there's always a pathway to that. What could that pathway look like? And it makes me think sometimes those pathways, the step to the next pathway, may just need to be a little bit smaller this time than last time to get to that point. And I think that's a good thing to keep being reminded of, because, when you play at a big space and in a big space, sometimes I need to be reminded. And the other one is to, I think the importance of, taking space to relax, to give recovery is really important as well. And I think, your face always reminds me of how I need to keep bringing that to my attention. And, it's been brought to my attention again. And I know I need to keep thinking, how do I bring that, maybe even those spaces that I do create, because I actually do know the importance of it. The funny thing is I really do.
Yeah.
I maybe need to make those times a little bit longer in my world.
It's just like maybe. A little circle, just maybe before, like the knowing it, but why don't we do it conversation.
Yeah. Correct. And so there we go. Hey, so we are finishing up because Nikhil is also wondering where we are, because we are meant to be on something right now. And I just want to say, I know we want to do a challenge in the Leaders Movement. And I think we should get that challenge happening soon, where you and I kind of get this rolling. When are we going to get that rolling?
Oh, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking me that. Next month? Oh, what we had it? No, the 22nd
wow,
of
next
April.
month. Okay.
22nd of April.
22nd of April?
I think that was the date that
wow,
we had.
So not for a little while?
Well,
I'm thinking of doing, so we talk about mindset. So that's going to be the movement one. I've already started thinking about doing more around the mental toughness and building, we're all about collaborations and things like that and partnerships. And I'm thinking, how could I sort of do this little thing that it's, how I talk about, we've got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. So what would be one thing that we have to do today that's uncomfortable? So a little challenge around that. So I'm thinking of doing that soon and releasing that in a build up, because I think the more we can be stronger in our brain, then so exercising the muscle of human intelligence, we've talked all about that this month, and we'll continue till the end of the month. And that was kind of out of this that I thought a little challenge would be fun to do. So maybe we'll start doing that very, very soon, and maybe even in the next couple of days. And I'll put it up, and we'll do that as the pre-build to the movement challenge that we'll put after that. What do you reckon?
Yes, I think I've said to people, if you want to follow me in the 60K, that'd be great, because then later on I can teach you how to get off. If I can do 60K, I can teach you how to get off the couch and just go around the block.
Perfect. So how do they keep watching you and your journey?
At the moment, it's just on my personal Facebook. Just come and find me. I'm very friendly.
Yeah. Just look for the lady in red. There we go. Awesome. You've seen her. You've heard her. She's awesome. I love her in my world, and I'm very grateful for you, Michelle. This has been a great conversation, and we will all move more because we have listened today, and we're going to take that, and more people are going to walk around the block today.
I hope so.
For those that want to join us on our challenges that we are going to be releasing, come join us at the Leaders Movement. We're going to be there. Facebook group, is it? What's the Facebook group link?
Off the top of my head, it's like Facebook group.
Okay, good. There you go.
Facebook.com/groups/the Leaders Movement, something like that.
Nikhil says Michelle is awesome. Nikhil, so are you. So are you, Michelle. And we are going to end this broadcast now. So what a great day on the decision table. Always a bit of fun. And who knows where the conversation will go. But today we've had a good time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
And you. Very soon.